Good morning and welcome to this edition of the Hindu Education Plus webinar under the Career Counseling series, jointly presented with Calvium. The topic for today's discussion is, does a B.Tech degree provide you with sufficient skills that recruiters seek? Calvium is a Coimbatore-based college that offers on-campus 4-year liberal engineering program in computer science. And we have Mr. Deepak Venugopal, founding member of Calvium, as one of our panelists. A marketing veteran and non-practicing engineer, Mr. Deepak did his B.Tech from Gindi Engineering College and MBA in International Business from Indian Institute of Foreign Trade, Delhi. Prior to Calvium, he was the marketing lead for KFC's Greater Asia business based out of Singapore. Welcome, Deepak. Also joining us in the discussion will be two industry experts, and I have the privilege of introducing them to you. One of them will join us shortly, Mr. Saravanan. He's the Vice President and Business Leader at Microsoft Bengaluru, an experienced global information technology industry leader. His portfolio includes modern work and industry solutions at Microsoft, skilled in IT strategy, software as a service, cloud, product management, service delivery, and building world-class organizations. Mr. Saravanan keeps his pulse on emerging trends as investor, mentor, and board member in technology and service startups. He believes achieving modern workplace is a core to digital transformation. Our other panelist who's with us now, Mr. Ram Prakash Govindarajan. He's the CEO and co-founder of Bengaluru-based ProGrad, which is a new age tech school that offers online interactive learning to make you tech ready for the industry. Mr. Ram Prakash describes himself as an entrepreneur, passionate about people and their development. The IIM graduate from Lucknow, he has worked with Procter & Gamble in Singapore for 3 years on cost forecasting and purchasing finance. A warm welcome to you, Mr. Ram Prakash. I would like to request our audience who have joined us to post their questions once the chat box is open. And before we dive into the topic of discussion, there are two parts to it. We'll have a simple poll for the audience, which we would all like you to participate. And I think the Hindu team will flash the poll now. Yeah, it's a very simple question. So please do the ranking. And I will also invite Mr. Deepak now to give his presentation on the very relevant question, whether our B.Tech degrees enable students to get the best opportunities in the tech industry. And if not, what are the lacunae and how to safeguard against it? So I think we'll give 5 more seconds, Mr. Deepak, for the poll, and then you could take over the floor. Thank you.
Thank you, Soma. And good morning to all of you here present, and really appreciate all of you coming on a bright, sunny Saturday morning as it is here in Bangalore. So let's get started with this. So I guess this is also an appropriate time to ask this question. Does a B.Tech computer science degree provide sufficient skills that recruiters seek? Because we are in the middle of, most of people now have just finished 12th standard, I guess. So in the middle of the admission season. Yeah, some of you in Tamil Nadu might be awaiting counseling. So this is probably the right time before you choose your college, or if you already have a dream college in mind, to probably go back and see if they rank on these parameters and see if that's truly the one for you. So we'll dive right into this. So does a B.Tech CSE degree provide sufficient skills? Now, before we just answer the question, let us just look at what do we see typically, right, around us when we look at joining a college. We see all these colleges talking about fantastic placement records, right? They all talk about the highest placement. So some kid has got like 500 crore or a 80 lakhs package right out of college. You know, it's all so great. And most of these astronomical packages generally come from software or the IT industry. So there is always this perception that, you know, if I get into software or if I learn computer science, I have a fantastic future, because you look at all these claims, look at all these placement claims. Great, it is fantastic. And, you know, I could be one of those, which is true in a way, right? But also along with that, if you look at certain industry stats, right, the world seems to need like millions of software engineers because a lot of things are digitizing, the world is changing, and there's a huge demand for software engineers, and there are a very few engineers compared to the demand which are passing every year, and which means if you're in such a high demand industry, you will generally coast through. If you're great, that is fantastic, and even if you're average, it doesn't matter because there's so much demand. People will just take you, train you, and your life is set. So it's a very simple thing. All you need to do is just enroll for a computer science engineering course, and your future is perfect, isn't it? It seems again, because when we look at the industry reports and see how different sectors are developing, many of these reports say that the software industry is going to grow much faster than the other areas and other sectors. So from that perspective, also, it seems like an evergreen field, right? There's a lot of scope here. So then why do we even have this webinar today? This is because there is also, along all this bright side, there is also this less spoken about dark reality, right, about this industry, which might be surprising for many of you, but anybody who's been in the industry, or if you have spoken to somebody who has just passed, a kid who has just finished college, you would know about this reality. And the reality is, these freshly minted engineers who pass from colleges, they are very, very unemployable. So the industry, especially the IT industry, considers very few of them employable in their respective sectors. Roughly 16% in service companies like Infosys, TCS are considered employable, and the number is less than 4% for product companies, right? And this is an average. If you go to specific companies and look at their requirements, maybe this number might be even lower. So this is the dark reality. And this is what we are here to talk about and say, why is it that after 4 years of training, which is supposed to be one of the tough courses, right, engineering, after 4 years of rigorous training, why are students who pass out still considered so unemployable? And what is being done? So today, students who pass out of colleges have to have a tough time getting a job, and they have to skill themselves in various programs, or the companies have to spend a ton of money trying to train these kids. So they spend another year or two just trying to get productive and become employable. So that's what we are here to talk about. And that's the context.
Thank you, Mr. Deepak, for that informative input. So I'll pick up one sentence from your slide presentation where you just said that if you're great, it is fantastic, and if you're average, there's nothing to worry. So, but there's this general assumption, that once I complete an engineering degree, I can easily get an IT job and ace the software world. But as you also mentioned, there is a dark reality. So, Mr. Ramprakash, let me begin with you. What is your view on this?
Right. So
what is the reality, basically?
Thanks, Oma, and good morning, everyone. So I pretty much kind of agree with some of the data that is put up by Mr. Deepak as well, and that is what we see in the market realistically as well, right? So, except for certain tier 1 colleges, right, which have close to 100% placements, tier 2, tier 3 onwards, right, the placement rate drops, and as you go down the ladder, the number of people that actually get jobs keeps going down, right? So it is true that while there are plenty more opportunities that are available in the market, but companies are not able to find enough good talent that is ready out there to be employable, right? And that is the reality. So at this moment in time, there are more opportunities than they can find, students that are skilled enough to kind of be able to match to those opportunities, right? Now, naturally, right, so about 8 lakh students graduate every year, about 3-4 lakh students get into the industry, but many of them need help to get into the industry, right? They don't directly get into the industry from campus, right? Because there is a huge gap, and which is where a lot of players like ourselves, a lot of finishing schools that are out there, trying to, train students and then kind of bridge that gap, right? So if the college education was, really good, and in 4 years, if they were able to make, industry grade software engineers, then those numbers should be ideally higher, right? And if we really watch news and stuff like that, I can see, for example, that the appetite from the industry is actually higher, right? They can employ 4 lakh, 5 lakh students directly out of college if they were able to find students who are skilled enough, right? So in a way, I do agree that there is a significant gap there.
I really, because I feel that our students really need to seize this opportunity. I mean, as we see this huge gap between demand and supply, whereas on the other hand, we talk about unemployability in so many other sectors, but engineering really has a good, large number of resource and human resource available. So, Mr. Deepak, would you like to kind of chip in here? What exactly you feel are those, shortfalls or the lacunae in the engineering courses for which our students who graduate are not able to live up to the expectations?
Yeah, I can talk about that. In fact, that's exactly what we're here to speak about. So we've got a few more points here to talk about on those lines. So if we actually get into the details and see why is a B.Tech degree not providing the skills that top recruiter seeks, and what are we doing? Like as Calvium, our endeavor as a company is to try to fix some of these gaps. So trying to see how can Calvium fix it. That's what we're here to discuss. So I'll quickly talk through a few points that we see as what the current education system lacks and how it can be fixed, and then we can probably have a freewheeling chat with the panelists here. So essentially, what we see is as the issue is the 20th century approach to engineering. So what I mean by the 20th century approach is that a lot of the way the syllabus is stacked and how we are being taught it comes from the great advances made in the 20th century, right? Like the whole way about engineering college, technical schools, because before that, engineering was all about tinkering. Like great scientists of the 19th century were mostly tinkerers, practitioners who actually created things in their backyards and garages, right? So the 20th century came up with a very good model to, inculcate it as an education, as a structured system. But somewhere in the 21st century, they can be found lacking, right? They haven't kept up to the pace in which the world has moved. So there are 3 things that we see as the key problems with the current system, especially when it comes to computer science education. So the number one is holistic curriculum, then industry relevance, and the lack of hands-on experience. So I will talk about them in a short while. So if you look at what we mean by holistic curriculum is a curriculum that sets you up for the real world. So what we see today when when students join engineering is that they have a lot of legacy courses, very irrelevant legacy courses. Why do I call them irrelevant? Because the current engineering system or the academic system for engineering was formed in the 20th century when most of the country had a PUC system. So we had 11 years of formal education in school, and then there was a 5-year degree program for engineering where the first year was common, where you learned about all different branches of engineering, and then you made a choice about, do you want to specialize in electrical or mechanical or civil, as the case may be. Now, what has happened is that we have moved on to a 12-year system of schooling and a 4-year system of engineering, but a lot of this first year's common studies still remain in the curriculum. So what happens is students make up their minds on what they want to do right out of college, right? So somebody who wants to learn computer science engineering still has to go through physics and chemistry and trigonometry and welding, things which are not going to be relevant or useful for him in the future, right? And what this does is it compromises. You still have the same 4 years. So this actually replaces more relevant courses that would be useful for that student for his future. Like Ram Prakash was mentioning earlier, in the back room, right? Like there are agile methods of software development and stuff, which colleges don't teach because all that time is taken away by these irrelevant legacy courses. So if those can be eliminated and replaced with more relevant courses for your field, a little more deep for your field, that would make a big difference. The second thing is how it is taught. So if you look at colleges today, you go to a top engineering college today, say go to the top engineering college in Tamil Nadu, you might still find that when they teach coding, coding is still taught like it is taught for the other disciplines. So there is a theory class and there are lab classes or practical classes. So coding is actually taught on the blackboard, right? With a chalk, and people are writing notes on how to program. This probably is not the most effective way to learn programming. Maybe a chalkboard and a blackboard has been replaced by a OHP projector or a PowerPoint, but it is still one person talking to 70 students in the class and people taking notes. So that's not the way you learn coding. You learn it by doing it yourself. And if you separate learning and practicals, then the learning is not complete. So that is, again, this is old methods which are not suited and upgraded to the real methods today. The third thing is that is also what happens is because of irrelevant legacy courses, you have very few options left. So you stuff all of that into the curriculum, and you stifle curiosity. So suddenly the kids have set patterns, set things to learn, and if they're interested to learn some other subjects in their choice, right, within computer science engineering, they don't have an option. So that stifles their curiosity and doesn't make them great engineers. So how does Calvium solve these problems? So what we do is we replace irrelevant legacy courses in our program with the best of liberal arts, things like critical thinking, problem solving, communication skills, which are not just useful as human beings in the 21st century, it is also useful in a workplace, right? So these are the things that we include in our curriculum, which are very helpful for students. And we have a very immersive, hands-on way of teaching students. So we don't have a lecture hall with one student, one teacher talking to 30, 40, 60 people. Instead, we have small groups of 20 where people actually sit on their devices with an instructor also in the room in person, but they actually learn and do at the same time. So that makes it a very immersive hands-on experience, which really teaches you better. And we also offer, because we have this irrelevant courses out of the way, we have a wide range of courses and electives which allow kids to explore their own areas of interest. So instead of stifling curiosity, we kindle more curiosity. People can play around and learn more and see what within their own chosen field, what particular specialization interests them. So that's for holistic curriculum. Now, the next problem that we see in today's college system is industry relevance or lack thereof. So if you see the faculty to start with is not really industry experienced. Very few professors of computer science have actually followed the profession, right? They haven't really worked, they haven't really developed code or worked in a team and created a product. There are very few who have had this hands-on experience. So what happens is a lot of this teaching becomes very, very theoretical, and it becomes bookish, theoretical, and they can't help, set up the right expectations and inculcate the right things. And also the whole course itself lacks a real world outlook, right? Because again, another problem with the courses is that they're designed by bureaucrats. So the courses are made, like, with all due respect to them, but it is made in some building, some board sitting there with a bunch of academicians, none of them who have worked in the industry or are very clued on to what exactly happens. So there are legacy courses which continue. They look at talent, they look at what can my professors teach, so we should just put these in. So there's a big yawning gap between what is being taught and what is actually being expected. And also, this is a field which changes so fast, right? In computer science as a science, as a technology, is developing so fast. So what happens is, if you're not part of the industry, you are left behind. And so today's courses probably are a decade or decade and a half behind what is actually happening in the industry. So there becomes a big gap. So how does Calvium solve for this? Is that, first of all, the core of the faculty who teach at Calvium are actually industry personnel. They are people with recent experience in the industry for 5-6 years, where they have actually created products, they have generated code, they have brought it to life, they've seen how the work that they do reaches the end customer or the end solution. So they're actually experienced in working in these organizations, hands-on techechnology, and also the students get one-on-one mentorship. What I mean by that is these mentors are on campus 24/7 to help the students with all the doubts and all the clarifications that they need, which gives them a hands-on approach. The second biggest difference that we bring to the table is this mandatory work integration. So here in Calvium, you are placed at the end of the first year for an internship in a big company, like a product company, probably, like the Googles and Microsofts, Adobe's, Flipkarts, Amazons, uh, and of the world, product companies. You're placed there right in the second year, in the end of first year, and from your second year onwards, you start working in these companies. And when you work in these companies while you study, so you work in the morning, you study in the morning and work in the afternoon. We call it the AM/PM approach. And because of this, what happens is you are able to apply what you have learned hands-on, real time, in real life, and see how it works, how it applies, how things actually transpire. And since these are full-time internships, it's not like a summer internship for 2.5 months where you do a little bit of work and go away. So it's an extended internship. So you actually see how your work goes through different stages and reaches the end customer, or reaches its end stages. So you see that through, and that's a lot of learning, a lot of hands-on learning, and it gives you a lot of good context on where you learn. The next thing is the curriculum itself is designed by industry experts. So we actually take a lot of input from the industry experts and see what industry experts, CXOs, and hiring managers, to see what they are looking for, what would be good, what is up and relevant. And we actually include that in the syllabus. So that way, the curriculum itself is designed by the industry. Finally, we find that today's college system lacks a lot of hands-on experience. What I mean by that is, knowing things is not enough. You need to learn by doing, right? It is like learning to swim on a textbook. As much as you would know everything about, flapping and swimming and breathing and floating, unless you actually do it, you can't really go out and survive in a pool or a river or a sea. So how do we bring that? And where does it, when rubber hits the road, what happens? Now, if you see in India, things are very competitive, right? With billion people here in the country. And for everything, especially from school days, you have to compete hard, right? You have to compete for getting the right exam, do well for the seats. There are few seats and thousands of students fighting for those seats. So there's a lot of competition. We all grow up with that competition, and we take that into our college as well. Like literally for the college seat also, if I get a seat, probably my friend wouldn't, because there's so much competition going on. And within the college also, once you've joined college, where you're supposed to liberate your thinking and have a broad-minded outlook, what happens in college is you end up competing with your friends for grades, right? So the end objective in a college is to get good grades, and you compete with your friends and for grades. So this rote competitive learning continues into college as well. So it doesn't end there. And then the internships which the colleges offer are also ineffective. So you might ask, you do work integrated program, kids here go to summer internships. Isn't that hands-on experience? Probably not, because first of all, your summer internships are short. So if you ask any manager, not just in the field of computer science, like any manager, even if it is a business school or sales or whatever, they dread getting interns sometimes, because the interns are generally either a distraction from the work, or the interns are given the grunt work which nobody else wants to do in the team. So interns don't really get a real flavor of what the work is, or very few interns get it, where companies have a very nice policy. So what happens is, and also the duration is so short, like, in 4 to 6 weeks in your summer break, there is very little that you can do to actually see the life cycle of what happens with your work. You don't see that whole life cycle through. So that becomes ineffective. Even though it is well-meaning, it is not that effective by design. And then finally, when it comes to co-curricular options in colleges today, when we say co-curricular activities, we generally talk about sports and cultural events and things like that, which are very important, but they're extracurricular in some way. When you say co-curricular, there is not much that is given to kids beyond what is academic learning. So what we do in Calvium instead is that, first of all, we don't compete anymore. So when you look at the Calvium setup, you have 20 people, small batches of students in each class, and they collaborate together right in the beginning to create products. So so that's what happens in the real world also, right? When you join a job, your manager doesn't find 5 people and says that, who's going to complete the job first gets a toffee. You have to collaborate together and solve it in the least possible time or the least possible cost or something like that. So you have to collaborate right from day one. So we inculcate that, and it is not easy. Working in a team is almost a skill that has to be learned, especially for us who come from a system which is so competitive. So you learn that in college from day one. You learn how to work along with people. How do you manage these things? How do you manage disagreements and things like that? So that's number one. And we also have this long and deep internships, which helps you see through this whole life cycle of your work. And finally, we also support higher computer science interests. For example, we have in our system where we take kids through hackathons, competitive coding situations and competitions and things like that, which give them a very nice rounded edge around their own specialization. So you're not just stuck with bookish knowledge in your specialization, you also have the real world knowledge with work integration. And also you see what your peers in the field are doing globally at a global level. So you also learn to keep up with the best and have a high benchmark for yourself. So this is what Calvium offers in a nutshell. A regular engineering program has academic courses, probably interspersed with summer internship and a project in the end. Whereas a liberal approach that we have taken at Calvium, we have academic courses, but we also have skilling courses right in the first year. And then we have a lot of foundational courses which give you a lot of grounding in critical thinking, communication, and problem solving. And we have a work integration right from second year, which goes all through your fourth year. So that's the liberal approach, which is a lot more, we feel, contextual, a lot more enriching, and probably can bridge this gap between what we study and what the industry seeks.
Right. Sorry, please.
Yeah, so that is in a nutshell. So that's what I had to share about the Calvium program. And there are certain benefits of this approach. The biggest benefit is you have a fulfilling college life. You feel that you have learned something and you got a best experience. But you also get end of first year internships. You get a stipend. So to show that the companies also are willing to show that they're serious about hiring you. So you get a stipend guarantee, which we say that you could earn up to 8 lakhs during your college days. And when you pass, you're not passing out as a fresher. You already have experience of 3 years, so you can get a 3x better pay package compared to your regular engineering peers. So that's what I had.
Right. So I would also like to announce for our attendees who have joined today's webinar that Calvium is offering a 30% discount on their application form, and it is valid. The offer is valid till 5 p.m. 29th August. Okay, so you can log on to www.calvium.com to avail of the offer. I'll go back to Mr. Ram Prakash. You heard in detail what Calvium is offering, and I would like to know whether you agree with Mr. Deepak, who says that all the legacy courses are irrelevant today. So if, as an industry expert, if you were to design a particular B.Tech course, how would you like to tweak it or modify it?
Right. To answer your first question, right, so are the current courses outdated? I would say yes. So for example, in the programming world now, there is a lot of emphasis on functional programming, but in the curriculum that's not reflected. Right? Just to give you one example, but overall, like Mr. Deepak said, some of the things like communication, working as a team, agile practices, or hands-on experience. So a lot of these things are definitely missing in the curriculum today. Now, not just in computer science and engineering, but one could argue that similar gaps exist in other areas also. Right now, typically, even in let's say tier 1 institutions, even in the IITs and IITs of the world, some of these things are actually missing. Right now, but by the sheer intelligence of the students and their smartness and capability, they still kind of get through, manage, upskill themselves, and get into great jobs, right? happens with a lot of students in tier 2, tier 3 institutions also. They put in a lot of effort and they learn, they make the best use of their time, do a lot of very, very good internships, and they still make a very, very good career. Now, normally what happens is companies, when we are also on the other side, right? As companies, when we look at recruiting freshers, we now have to have a plan to recruit them based on potential and then again train them so that they're deployable and work ready, right? So that is how the industry is forced to kind of fill in this gap. And colleges today are definitely not making candidates who are work ready or students who are work ready, right? So that is how I'll probably put it. Now, to the second part of the question as to is Calvium taking the right approach to this? So I haven't probably gone deep into thinking about is this the right approach to solve this problem and stuff. But based on what I heard today and stuff, I do think some of these are really good ideas to implement, to kind of give a lot of work exposure to students and then, skilling them and, and especially in computer science and engineering, this is something that is possible. Now in traditional engineering, it's still probably a bit tricky, but in computer science and engineering, there is still, that flexibility that a lot of companies now are looking at primarily the skill sets and not the credentials. I wouldn't say every company, but there are a lot of companies out there already, right? Many startups, many other companies who are forward-looking and only looking at the skill set. They don't really care about your credentials and what degree you have and so on and so forth, right? That sort of a shift is definitely there in the computer science field. It's fairly emerging technology and stuff like that. So it definitely gives opportunities for organizations like Calvium to take a very different approach and look at it from scratch and solve for this problem. I hope I answered your question.
I would like to ask the Hindu team, is Mr. Saravanan joining us?
He's there. He's there.
Oh, he's already there. So I'm seeing the screen. That's why I'm very sorry. Okay, Mr. Ramprakash, one quick question again to you is like, when you are, say, hiring people, what exactly are you looking for in them? What is it that you are searching in the prospective candidate?
At this point in time, when we recruit, right, to an extent, and a recruiter is going in with the mindset that, okay, freshers, we can only expect so much, and then primarily looking for potential problem-solving skills and things like that. And then with an approach that, okay, I'll now take them and train them and ensure that they can become productive over next 3 to 6 months, right? So from that perspective, if I'm going to hire, then I'm primarily looking at problem-solving skills. And of course, I will want to see if they've been using the time to upskill themselves, right? To kind of to be able to show that intent and so on and so forth. But in an ideal world, right, I would want candidates who are work ready, who can, join and start contributing and stuff like that.
Could you a little bit elaborate on that? We always use these generic terms, and a lot of times many people do not understand. So when we say industry ready, work ready, what are those exact specifications that the prospective employer would really seek?
Right. So when I say work ready, like Mr. Deepak pointed out, right, it's not just being able to code, but are you able to code the right way? Right? Do you follow agile practices? Do you follow good coding principles? Do you write clean code? Are you able to collaborate in a team? Right. So these are some things that are typically unheard of in undergraduate programs. Right. So these things are definitely not there. When you have to work on an industry-ready project, these are definite must-haves. Right. One should definitely be able to do some of these things. So that is what is missing today.
Yeah, and Mr. Deepak, I think your course is exactly trying to fill in those gaps.
Exactly. Yeah.
So let me bring in Mr. Saravanan also now. So you've been listening to the discussion so far, and what are your inputs? Like, how do we bridge this gap between the demand and supply of engineers, and in whichever way the engineering courses have a shortfall?
So let me start with this with the assessment that the gap that you are talking about, and the panelists discussed so far, I mean, that's going to only widen. I'll tell you why that is going to widen. And at the start, the first 2-3 months of the pandemic, the world has seen 2 years worth of digital transformation. I'm talking about the businesses becoming more and more digital and digital way of doing business. That has happened just in 2-3 months in the initial days of the pandemic. So, and also it proved that a lot more could be done remotely than we thought before, right? I think that's what we call remote work and hybrid work. When I said a lot more could be done remotely than we thought, I'm talking about even the most complex machinery can be repaired or serviced remotely using technologies like AR, augmented reality, or virtual reality, right? So, and the metaverse kind of newer phenomenon is also beginning to take shape. So the point here is that, since that has been proven, and becoming digital, becoming a cloud-oriented company is becoming a norm in every industry, whether it is manufacturing or retail or financial services, doesn't matter which industry we're talking about. So therefore, the assessment now is that today, IT or technology contribution to world GDP is 5%. That is going to double by 2030. What that means is not only that the contribution of technology to GDP, but also how that impacts the 90% of the GDP. And a life is going to become more and more digital in every walks of life, not only personal life, but also on how we do business in every industry. So that creates a lot more demand, will create a lot more demand than we see today. And there are not a whole lot of places in the world that companies can go to find those digital or software talent. Every business is becoming a software or digital business. And India is one of the top places that companies can are looking to go to. And here, while that's the case, the demand is going to go up, and we do have this looming gap, not only for today, but also if this is not addressed, the productive output from colleges is not addressed, that's only going to widen further and further. And what I hear today is really music to my ears, being an employer looking to hire and ready, really deployable, capable, and the students coming out of college is a big news to me. And I hope more, this thinking that we have today or sharing today is becoming a reality, and more and more colleges or institutions adopt this style of engineering curriculum. And so to me as an employer, it takes about 6 months from as we hire from colleges to put somebody on the job. I mean, actually, when I say somebody on the job, not at the right level of expertise, even to do basic work in the kind of work that we do, our products or solutions that we build. But for somebody to get some level of mastery, it takes about 2 years. Think about what I can gain if somebody from a curriculum or program like this coming out with that actual experience, and for me to be able to deploy them readily into the most complex work that we do, and what that means to the whole industry. It's amazing, and I'm looking forward to this taking root.
So what kind of exposure you think would be really ideal before a candidate applies for the job? Instead of becoming, as you said, it's a rapidly developing field, it's an evergreen field, and there are jobs. So instead of becoming a corporate burden, as they say, I mean, what exposure would you in your position, in your capacity, recommend before a student applies for the job?
Absolutely. And for somebody to be productive, I look for their understanding, the ability to build software in the most modern way, right? When I say modern way, just to give you some example, test-driven development, if you will, agile. That's what they call agile development, and DevOps kind of thing, and a cloud-native kind of software development, and those kind of modern discipline, right? I think that's not going to happen just because you're going through some and degree. It's going to happen as because you are actually doing it and you are experiencing it. It happens that kind of capability is developed through experience, and also the communication skills is something that I heard B.Tech and Ram talking, and I think that's going to be extremely important. Software development is a collaborative endeavor, right? I think if you can't work as part of a team, and you are not going to be an important contributor to the outcome you're looking for from a software engineer, right? So therefore, those are some of the capability that we really look for in today's world.
So like everybody agrees that productive employees, they raise agile organizations. Mr. Ram Prakash, I mean, how do you at this point in time transform the workplaces? If our B.Tech degree holders are really found wanting in sufficient skills?
Sorry, Soma, could you repeat the question?
No, I said like we are all talking about, the productive employees, they raise agile organizations. So how, at this point in time, how are you transforming the workplaces if our B.Tech degree holders, they are found wanting in sufficient skills?
Right. So today, what happens is because there is a gap, but companies do have the appetite to hire more, right? They acknowledge that there is a gap, and thereby there is a need to do a bridge training, right? So therefore, then the students have to join a finishing school, like a coding boot camp, spend about 3-6 months, getting trained and doing a lot of projects, learning some of these things, and then going to the industry. Or companies hire them based on potential and then put them through training and then take them, right? So that is what is typically happening today, right? Half the roles or openings in the industry, even today, more than half, 70%, are being filled this way, right? Because the candidates are not ready by themselves, fresh out of college. Now, what generally happens after graduation is, in these sort of trainings, the candidates are put through a lot of projects, a lot of training where it's not just about learning how to solve a problem using code, right? It's not just about passing test cases. It's also about, can you write the code following some of the latest principles? Can you follow clean coding? Can you follow TDD or extreme programming, some of these agile practices? So these bridge programs, as you would call it, are trying to fix this problem, but they are able to fix this problem in a more temporary way, right? It's like putting up a small bandage over the wound, probably not addressing the root cause, so to say. But this works, and eventually people find a way. It's not ideal, it's not super efficient, but it works. So the world moves on. So that's sort of what is happening, in the fresher hiring space, as I see it.
Mr. Sarvan, in your company, what kind of talent would you actually go in for? Who has completed the degree and then undergone a specialized training in skills, or you would also try out a freshly minted graduate and train them yourself?
We go straight hire from colleges, and we do give a lot of internship, and most of the interns turn out to be employees. And in addition to that, we also hire, we have a program called Aspire to hire at the lateral level, just freshers and or early experience kind of folks. But in all cases, we take them through very rigorous internal program for them to become productive and get into mainstream, solution engineering or software development, product development type activities. So it's a lot of internal training happens.
Mr. Deepak, do students applying for Calvium, do they have to write an entrance exam or a test?
Yes, they do. There is a very, that's something interesting, like thanks you bring that up. So they have an eligibility test, which we call the Calviness quotient or a KQ challenge. And only those who pass this entrance test are eligible for admission. Now, you don't have to learn coding or know anything related to computer science for passing this test. So what we test is these are the topics which are tested, these 7 topics, which is basically simple numerical skills, data interpretation, logical reasoning, problem solving skills. So these are things which any 10th standard pass would also be able to do. So these are almost like puzzles which you generally do for fun sometimes in your free time, right? So these are that kind of questions, but they check you for your fitment to a software job in the future. So these are the tests. This is the test that you have to pass. Now, couple of more things about the KQ challenge. One is that these are all done online. So you buy the application, so you get access to the challenges which you have to complete online. You can complete them at your convenience. So you don't have to take all the 7 sections at the same time. You can do the first section, take a break, do the second session afterwards. And so you can do all the 7 at your convenience. And finally, you also are given a lot of practice tests. So there, for each section, you have practice tests, which you can go through any number of times before attempting the final one. And one last thing about this test is that this is not a relative grading test. So a lot of entrance exams like the IIT JEE for one, or you have the CAT exam. These exams are what you call relative graded exams. So the top 1 percentile or somebody get through, and the bottom 99 are disregarded. So this is not one of those. Here we don't relatively grade people. This is an absolute test. So everybody who passes this test gets a chance to get admitted into the college, which is on a first come first serve basis. So the sooner you do it and pass, you can secure your admission because we have limited seats. So that's something about this. And this test has been developed over the years with partnership with the industry. So more than 5,000 people before we have administered this to the students have taken this test from different grades of life. For example, school students, college students, people working in the software business. So it's a good indicator to your aptitude for a software job. So everybody is welcome to take this. Even if you aspire to do computer science engineering or you're still in the 11th standard, you can definitely take this test and see if you have a flair for the software world.
Right. So attendees can also avail of the offer that Calvium is offering. It is on till Monday, 29th August, 30% discount on your application forms. In the backroom discussion, I remember Mr. Saravanan, you were mentioning about the gender ratio in IT workforce. And IT, you said, is a fertile field for women employees as well. So is there any kind of gender disparity? I just wanted to know at the college level and at the job level.
There is no, I think there is no disparity that I see in matured organizations, right? I think it's more, the question is more, is it a conducive field or place for, diverse folks to come and work and thrive in their career? Yes, this is certainly one of the fields that, software is one place that there is a lot of level playing field here. I think particularly also the hybrid kind of phenomenon that we're seeing, it's a lot more conducive than it has ever been in the past, with to be able to balance life, work and home, and those sort of things, and look to progress in our career. I think where we see gap is really not at the entry levels as the career progresses. We see the diversity tapering down primarily because for various other reasons. But I think if I have to say, this is probably the most fertile type industry, if you will, for women, for example, to come and look to build their career, grow in their career, and at the same time balance whatever other things that they have to do. And companies like ourselves, there is huge focus on that, right, to create the right environment. And I do encourage this industry for female students.
Mr. Ramprakash, would you like to add your viewpoint to this?
Right. So a lot of companies are trying to improve their diversity. Now, overall, if you look at engineering admissions, definitely it's not 50-50, even in terms of number of women entering engineering versus men, right? So there is a limited availability of women at the lower end of the, for example, right now, companies who are forward-looking, who hire from top colleges, they definitely do emphasize a lot on diversity, and they try and take in more women. So that shift is definitely there, and there are more and more women who are definitely entering, especially fields like computer science and engineering. But definitely there is a lot of appetite, and for women, this is a great opportunity to kind of enter engineering and go on to have very, very good careers in STEM. So I would, if anything, take this opportunity to encourage any women audience and the participants and parents to encourage their children or women themselves to enroll for engineering programs, and opportunities are absolutely unlimited. If anything, given all the emphasis on diversity programs, your chances are even higher, if I may say that. So you should, by all means, try and enroll for an engineering program that you want to have a great career.
Yeah.
Mr. Ashok Perumal wants to know whether software companies coming for campus placement give equal opportunity to all branches. He says, I'm raising the query because a lot of branches in computer science are started, and most of the students prefer CS. Will this not lead to diminishing of core courses as good students avoid these branches? So who would like to take this?
I'll quickly
take
this question. So it's a demand and supply thing, right? So today, out of the fresher jobs that are available in India, now vast majority of them are computer science and engineering related jobs, right? IT related jobs. Therefore, it is to one's advantage if they join computer science and engineering or IT or similar programs. Now, do companies provide equal opportunities? Now, naturally, if I'm recruiting for a mechanical engineer, I'll recruit mechanical engineer. But most of the jobs are from IT, and if I'm recruiting for IT, I'll prefer CSIT candidates over others, right? Many companies, open their roles only for circuit branches, or in some cases, only specific to CS and IT, right? So definitely learning CSIT, not just in the short term, just to enter into a job, but even in the long term to go on and have a successful career in IT, it helps. Unfortunately, that's the reality, and CSIT helps. But then if you're entering good college, and if you want to become a mechanical engineer, if you want to become an electrical engineer, there are definitely opportunities out there for you as well, right? So there are still a lot of good mechanical engineering jobs, electrical engineering jobs. But if you want to get into CS and IT, then I think it's better if you join CS and IT. In many cases, that helps. Is how I'll put it.
Mr. Sarvan, would you like to add to that?
Let me parse the question. I mean, if the question is that the different flavors of IT or computer science, if that's a question, as the I as an employee, I really don't differentiate. Really, what we're looking for is the foundational aspects of whether the individual the student is conversant in the topic of interest, and the ability to learn, the other soft skills that we're looking for he or she to be productive and get into mainstream work. I think that's what we look for. I don't think we ever differentiated between different branches of computer science. To me, that's just really an entry point. It's really the individual's ability to move from there on to build their career. I think what it takes to build that, that's what we look for. And interestingly enough, the world that we live in, it requires mixed experiences, if you will, right? I think to solve problems of different industries, and therefore liberal programs like this that bring fields together, different aspects of the engineering discipline, if you will. I think that's where I see more need. Not just computer science with something else, for example. That's more that'll be more in demand in the future. And there is no, I would say, there is no discrimination, so to speak, here computer science against something else, right? So.
Shri Varshini Mohanraj is asking, what is the current trending computer language?
So probably Saravanan can answer this.
I think both, yeah.
Repeat the question again, please.
What is the current trending computer language?
Any particular language or something that this is a question we often get is a particular software or language that they should learn for getting
and job easily, I guess.
Yeah. And it's not a particular language, it's more the style of software development and the architecture, cloud native, those sort of things. It's not a particular language that matters here. It's really, the environment on which the software is developed, and based on the trend, more cloud native, how you develop web services or services in the cloud native, that doesn't matter. But as long as it is the that kind of an architecture, and then the process of software development, which is the agile or extreme programming, and then DevOps kind of principles, those things matter more than a particular language skill. And language skill is something that you can pick up. There are certain languages suitable for a certain kind of problem solving over the others. So therefore, I think your language skills report will continue to grow. So I won't emphasize much on the language itself, but more on the style of software development and the environment on which the software is developed and deployed. So that's more that matters more than the language itself.
Mr. Ramprakash, if you could step in and just, again, maybe a little at the cost of being a little repetitive, what Mr. Saravanan just mentioned. So how are you kind of filling in that spot?
No, on that, I'm completely on the same page. I don't think language matters. So it's about how well you understand the fundamentals, and in fact, if you understand one particular computer language really well, then it is easy for you to pick up others, right? So I don't think that's ever a constraint for any company. Of course, a company may be working on projects majorly in a particular stack, and therefore they may want the candidates to be knowledgeable in that particular stack. But that is always something that you can pick up, right? So in terms of preparing yourselves and being very, very good at programming is more important than learning a particular language.
Right. So now
one thought on that as well.
Yeah.
So something which I think both Ramprakash and Saravanan was also mentioning, and we also get a lot of these queries from parents, since being in this field, that and a lot of colleges do a great job in promoting courses like flavors of computer science, if I might call that, like specialization in AI/ML, specialization in AI/ML is a popular buzzword that everybody uses these days, and then things like machine learning or cloud computing or cyber security. So this is something we also recommend, is that what you need is a very strong fundamental understanding. So one particular flavor or one particular language is not what is going to get you through. A good fundamental understanding and seeing how it fits in the bigger picture. So we recommend students also to choose the basic course as much as possible, unless you really are very, very interested in that specialization. I think the basic course is the best. And that can help you in the future. These different flavors or versions are something which we probably can pick up on the go. So we also emphasize on finding something which will help you develop the basics holistically.
Yeah, though you have emphasized on basic course, somebody is still asking, which specialization would you advise for UG? AI and data science, or cyber security and blockchain techno?
Let me jump in. I think all of them have, a huge demand. Right? I think, AI/ML, is applicable in everything that we do. So therefore, there's more need for that. And then blockchain is more emerging. There will be more need for that in the future. Cybersecurity has always been fashionable, and there's with the increasing digital, in every walks of life or business. there's going to be, the threat landscape has only, it's growing. Therefore, there's more security threats. Therefore, we need more security skills and more security trained folks. And therefore, I think all of them have demand. It's really personal choice here and what you are passionate about, and you won't go wrong in choosing any of them.
Mr. Ramprakash?
No, I have the similar views as well. So all of them are good. It depends on what you really like. But to an extent, taking a step back, like Deepak mentioned, to an extent, it's slightly safer to go for a computer science and engineering sort of a generic generalist approach to learn the basics really, really well. And then you can later on specialize in any of these fields still, right? So that is what I would probably recommend. But all of these are definitely emerging technologies. It's always good to learn emerging technologies.
Right. So one student wants to know, how can we get connected to the modern technologies? I'm not really sure of the question. Mr. Deepak, do you understand this question? How do we get connected to the modern technologies?
I'm also not sure what it is meant, but in case if a student wants to know that, how do you get to know what is new and upcoming and how do I get familiar? I think today we are living in a world where it is so easy to access any information, right? So you can Google it, Bing it, whichever way, it's all out there. And so just search it. The internet is there. We have access to so much information like never before. So and just get connected. There are so many other sources, podcasts and experts talking. There's so much of information available. So if you're really interested, we are so interested in knowing what our favorite celebrities do. So if you just put that and we follow them everywhere, if we can just put that interest into these things, there is so much to learn. So yeah, you just have to go out and put yourself out there and subscribe to content and you can get that.
Right. I think we'll do the poll now, Mr. Deepak, once again, because somebody is also asking about the most important opinion, and we'll give 5 seconds. And also, since we have also crossed our time limit, so I'll just do one wrap up points from all of you. See, everybody joins an engineering course, like parents do invest a lot of money and students join with a lot of aspirations, and the end result is everybody wants to get into a good job. So now, unfortunately, all our engineering courses available right now do not perhaps equip the students ideally with skill set, as we all discussed during this 1 hour. So one quick roundup saying 3 points to all 3 of you. What would you again reiterate? What should our students and their parents exactly look for? Should it be an integrated course? Should it be with a liberal approach? I mean, Mr. Deepak Venugopal is already offering, but when we are talking about being industry ready, what would be the advice of all of you to all the students who have joined the webinar today? Mr. Saravanan, perhaps you could go first.
Yeah, being employable is the most important thing, and whether you do integrated or otherwise. And I think getting a grip on what it takes to be more employable. What do companies look for, and focusing on building those through the program is more important. And I would say some of the topics that we discussed here what the traditional programs don't give. I think those are the gaps that you should look to bridge as you pursue any program, and for you to be employable. Just focus on that.
Yeah, Mr. Ramprakash. Right, just to add to that and slightly elaborate, no matter what course you join, just ensure you practice whatever you learn a lot. Find opportunities to practice a lot. So try and do a lot of internships, go out of your way. Even if it is part of the course, not part of the course, still try and go out of your way, try and do internships, right from say 2nd year, 3rd year, 4th year. Do a lot of hands-on practice, do a lot of coding, build a lot of projects, and that's how you learn. So it's not about learning 5-6 different programming languages. It's about learning one really, really well and then building something out of it and getting that experience, shipping it, right? So those sort of things is what one should focus on, and get a lot of hands-on exposure, do a lot of projects and stuff. And that is what will help. In terms of what courses to join, traditional computer science courses, traditional engineering courses, if you join top colleges, it still works. It kind of helps you get a job, right? You can still go on and have good careers. But something like the liberal engineering program, which are new, which is something new that is on offer. Now, these may set you up really well for learning the fundamentals really well, and specifically to have a good long computer science careers. So you may consider that as well. But no matter what you choose, you ensure that you follow some of the things that we discussed today and get a lot of hands-on exposure, do a lot of practice, and improve your communication, collaboration, these sort of things. So that is what will help you go on to have very good careers.
Yeah, exactly. Mr. Deepak, I wanted you to wind up with this point that, it's not that our top colleges are not offering the best of curriculum, but you are the first, I believe, in the country who have introduced this liberal science and engineering. So that basic difference, what it is going to make to the students to become more employable in future in this evergreen field.
Yeah. So, so if you ask me, I would say if I wear the Calvium hat, I would say just join Calvium, and all the points that Mr. Saravanan and Ram Prakash raised are addressed there. So you can just join Calvium and you get all of that. But if I take off my Calvium hat and say generally also, if I have to suggest something, there'd be two things which I would suggest. Number one would be that wear this hat of saying that how much can you do things in the real world, because we are raised in a bubble, especially when we are going through school so much. So there is this whole school bubble of marks and results and things like that, and we don't see the real world outside much. So just try to see more of the real world, see how things apply. How could I use we all talk about algorithmic thinking, problem solving. You can think like a computer science engineer and solve a problem. You're standing in a queue to book a ticket or buy a ticket for a movie. You can think about how can this queue move faster if they were arranged in a different way, right? If you're waiting in a check line to check out of a supermarket, you can think about how can this be made faster. That is algorithmic thinking. That's improving your skills. So just look into the real world and try applying whatever you have learned. So that's number one. And there's so many ways we can do that. And the second thing, probably what I'll tell is that evaluate your all these popular options also with the same yardstick that you would do for a new one. So just because a college is popular or a place is popular, it doesn't mean that everything is good about it. So just put the same yardstick and see how does it give you a holistic perspective. Does it teach you more about the real world? So just get more real is what I would suggest in that sense.
Yeah, get more real. And as you always say, the knowledge is not everything. Like, we also have to learn by doing. So I think that is more important. And I thank all of you, all our experts, for your valuable inputs and insights, and the audience for sending in their questions. Thank you all once again for joining this edition of the Hindu webinar, the Hindu Education Plus webinar presented by Calvium. And once again, a reminder that to avail of the offer from Calvium of 30% discount on their application forms, valid till Monday, 29th August, 5 p.m. Thank you and bye-bye.
Thank you so much. Pleasure. Thank you so much. And thank you all.